Mount to Coast H1 Hybrid. Woohoo! What have they done? So you've got road shoes, you've got trail shoes, you've got door to trail shoes, gravel shoes, hybrid shoes, but what do they really do? What's the difference between all these? Can a hybrid shoe be legitimately performant in both realms? Just a quick stop here. Close-up's coming later. I want to tuck these aglets in over here underneath the laces. These aglets can kind of tap on this, you hear that? Which is not a performance issue, but you know, hearing that noise constantly. I have the same kind of issue when I'm running with my stride pod. Normally I'll do the same thing when I'm wearing the stride pod on my right shoe. I will tuck the aglets in here, sticking out the side here, just so this hard thing does not rattle against this little tabby, or this is where my stride pod would be. Lots of buzz around this shoe. I've been able to run and test this shoe over the past month or so. You'll probably notice that the model that I pulled out of my lineup there is particularly clean. The reason being, Mount to Coast was nice enough to send me a half size up US 10 here. Thank you to Mount to Coast for that. Again, full disclosure, these sample pairs were provided at no cost for test and review by Mount to Coast. Of course, all of my reviews are completely independent and unbiased. I do not share any of this content with Mount to Coast or with any other brand or agency across any of my other reviews. All right, that out of the way. Yes, I do have a half size up US 10 that I'm running in right now. Initially, I received a 9.5, same size that I have in the T1. If you check out my review of the T1, I did know mostly it was okay sizing, but a little bit on descents, downhills, and at certain different times, I would notice a little bit of cramping on the big toe side. Not necessarily cramping, more like just a touch of rubbing at the very front inner tip of my big toe. I do kind of notice a similar toe box in this model, and same thing, like just the very front edge of my big toe, I would kind of get a little rubbing, and that's a little bit concerning for, you know, very long ultra distances. I'll talk about sizing a little bit later when I do a comparison with these two trail/hybrid models against their road R1. One element of the hype and anticipation regarding this release from Mount to Coast, and personally speaking, is regarding its potential use as a backyard ultra shoe. Of course, choosing a shoe for a backyard ultra or any type of really extreme duration event for that matter, fit is supreme. You don't have any little bit that doesn't feel right in your footwear, you know, coming straight out of the gate. I could definitely run this shoe in a US 9.5, as I do with the T1. Fit and sizing is pretty much similar, but again, with that kind of extreme, I would say, ultra distance intent usage scenario in mind, I did want to make sure, I don't want to feel any point at all inside the shoe which would give me pause using it. So let's jump into the specs right away. 8.8 ounces here in the US 10, and even 250 grams. That's 0.1 ounces heavier than my US 9.5. Stack underfoot is listed at 35.29 for a 6mm drop. That is their new Circle Cell midsole foam. It is a super critical foam made of purportedly 100% renewable livestock feed. Mount to Coast says it offers PIBA level energy return with a 50% increase in durability over PIBA. Now, I can't vouch for the durability quite yet. I've got about 40 miles in the 9.5 and about 20 miles in this 10 here, but I have seen some of their test videos lab tests of kind of squishing down the foam repeatedly with some type of machine. Pretty interesting, and I think they do have a history and reputation for durability. So Mount Deco shoes definitely known to last the distance. Inside the box of the H1, there was actually a poster highlighting Jamil Curry running in the shoes during his Chipotle challenge event. Some crazy distance he ran in a single pair of H1s. I think if you had any questions on durability, I would refer you to Jamil on that one. As far as energy return, yes, they have got something going on here. It is, I would say, an incredible level of energy return here. It feels at 8.8 ounces in my size, super light on foot, just bouncy. I mean, combination of lightness and response underfoot. They've really nailed something here with this Circle Cell midsole. Comparing the midsole feel underfoot to the other two Mount Deco models I have, this one definitely feels like the lighter foam. It also feels like the most energetic of the foams. The T1's PIBA EVA blend also does feel quite energetic with the PIBA in the mix, but it does have a denser feel underfoot. A little less quick rebound to that midsole. A little bit of a, I don't know, slightly, delayed energy coming back from that shoe compared to this one, and also feels maybe a little more protective underfoot in terms of kind of the firmness of the foam. But there is only a 1 millimeter difference between these two models measured at the heel. The T1 does have a 4 mil drop compared to 6 mil here with the H1. But honestly, I did note that I felt like the T1 rode like a little bit higher in the heel than the 4 mil would suggest. It honestly feels, in terms of the drop, very similar to this H1 here. So getting back to protection, there's no plates in this one, the T1 or the R1, of course, but I feel like this one does feel as protective as the T1. Again, it's just a difference in feel of the foam. I don't feel anything getting through to my foot in this shoe here, 29 under the forefoot, which is most pertinent to me in regards to foot protection. With the lower drop of the T1, you do get a little bit more on the forefoot and 1 extra millimeter at the heel, so 32 under the forefoot in that one. But I really don't notice too much of a difference in protection between these two shoes. They feel very similar in that regard. Also, talking about the R1, that shoe I believe has more EVA in the mix. It also has that kind of, I don't know, thicker plastic S-shaped insert in there. The shoe is extremely light, the R1 that I have. They also have an R1R, touch heavier, but my R1s are about the same exact weight as the H1s here. But the midsole foam, it definitely does feel softer, a little bit squishier underfoot, but they skimped on the outsole to kind of, keep the weight down. It's got that plasticky type of outsole on that model that I have. But again, the foam, softer underfoot, and they're really utilizing that kind of insert there to keep it from compressing too much, especially under the ball of the foot near the big toe. And that's something I feel like that design really worked, and I'm kind of wondering why they didn't extend that to other models. I mean, the new ones, the T1 and the H1 here. Perhaps they just have more advanced midsole foams and didn't really feel like it was necessary for real trail running with the T1 and maybe hybrid moderate trail running with the H1 here. Testing a bit of the descent here. Definitely have some quick twists and turns in the mix on this little route. I do notice kind of similar limitations on foothold compared to the T1. A little bit of foot sliding forward here, but I would say it's not any worse than the T1, and perhaps it actually feels even a little bit better, as in I'm not feeling like I'm sliding forward as easily in this shoe compared to the T1, which is surprising. Again, you can see me running here. This is a bit steep. Quick switchbacks here, sandy, dry. I've got 2 mil lugs here, VersaGrip outsole. We'll talk about that in a close-up. No problem hanging on here. Grip for sure is comparable to most trail shoes I have in this kind of conditions and terrain underfoot. I'm certainly running just as quick and just as easy in this section as I would in any other legitimate trail shoe. I'm really noticing good balance in this shoe as I'm getting a little turny in this trail, getting kind of on the edges of stability here, and the balance is really good. I'm honestly not finding it any less stable than the T1 there. So certainly in my testing, very trail capable, and obvious differences being the outsole, 2 mil here compared to 4 mil in the T1. But aside from that, I really don't think you are losing too much running this shoe on legitimate trails. I've also done a fair bit of road running in this shoe. It is a hybrid shoe, and that's where those 2 mil lugs can come in handy. There's not a cleat-like setup to it. They're fairly evenly spaced, and again, being shallow, they don't really have sharp edges to them in terms of shape either. It just rides very smoothly on the road. I mean, this could honestly be a very capable pure road shoe as well. Certainly at its weight and the lightness of feel on foot and just the energetic feel underfoot. I mean, I would say it rivals any daily trainer out there on the market as far as road running is concerned. The H1 is overall just a very smooth riding shoe. I am actually 2 days removed from Mammoth Trail Fest. I did the triple, Dragon's Back Ascent Friday, 50K Saturday, and 26K on Sunday. I did ramp it up at the end of the 26K, knowing it was my last race over there. It's Tuesday now, and I am feeling great in this shoe. I think that's one of the elements of this shoe that's amazing. Typically, the legs are feeling heavy-ish, actually surprisingly good after those 3 events. But when you're in a phase when you want to have an easy day and you want to kind of maybe ease off the gas a bit on your run, you want to reach for that soft recovery shoe, maybe cruise it out a bit. But a lot of the times those shoes can tend to be on the heavier side, a little bit clunky underfoot. It's great with this shoe that you have such a great cushioned feel, energetic feel, and the weight is also low. So again, 8.8 ounces in my size. After running 3 races like that back to back, driving 9 hours back over the course of the night and the evening from Sunday yesterday and now running today, I wouldn't imagine that I would be running this smoothly and this easily so quickly after that race. But this shoe really lets me do it. Again, that weight is so good. I just feel an ease of picking the shoe up off the ground and cruising along. Not that, heavy clunkiness of, a big cushion shoe that I may typically reach for in a scenario like today. The fit of the shoe is also excellent. Actually, let's take a little stop here and do a close-up. We've got the tuned fit lacing here, similar to the T1 R1. Dual zone lacing setup here. You got 3 rows on the top with regular laces and 3 rows at the bottom with their quick lace design. I think this is definitely more comfortable than the T1. I know I've heard from people that people get lace bite with the T1. They have the dual zone setup, but they have 2 quick laces, and the tongue is also quite a bit thinner. And I think people are feeling the thinness of that quick lace, similar to this one here, across mainly the top area of the foot. Of course, that being a knit setup in the T1, that doesn't help at all. This is actually a nice flat lace here, so lays better across the top of the foot. I can't imagine anyone getting lace bite with this setup here. It's definitely very comfortable. So, got a gusseted design here, very light gusset. No inner booty extending around here. This is just a single layer. You got that Kevlar aramid fibers running here, so this is an extremely light. You could see my fingers through the upper there. Very light, very breathable upper. You've got sort of a toe bumper here. It's not super secure. This comes up a bit, so definitely gives you some protection for trails, but you know, you're not going to expect a burly mountain running trail shoe here. They do have their ortholite-ish insole here. T1 has a EVA one, which is more suited for trails, so in wet conditions, maybe you might want to swap this one out. But similar to the T1, they do have nice breathability built into. That's a nice feature of Mount Deco shoes. Looking at this circle cell midsole here, let's press it. It's not crazy. You know, sometimes you press in and they just feel crazy soft. This one is like, it almost feels like it's really wanting to bounce back quickly, but it has like I don't know, a firm softness to it. I don't know how to, you know, say that. It's not like, you know, I have the Craft Shoe Explorer Pro, and that one definitely feels very energetic, but in a softer way. This seems like a higher rebound, like something would want to like bounce right off of that. In terms of flex, very good flexibility. They maintain the outsole coverage throughout here. Good twist here, but not excessive. I would say that gives it kind of a smooth ride on the run. There's enough flex to, you know, allow it to adapt to the trails underfoot, but also maintain that kind of forward momentum, more of a smooth directed ride, road style type of geometry there. And I think it's a good kind of mix. I think the T1 definitely has more twist to it, but you can see very adequate here. You have a decent toe rocker up front, nothing overly substantial. I would say having it on foot, it's standing in it, it's nothing that I really notice as a, you know, some huge rockers you really feel like it's really rolling you forward on the foot. This one feels fairly stable under the midfoot and under the toes. You can see that toe sweep there, but again, it's really not noticeable even standing or on the run. It's just overall smooth ride moving forward. Looking at the toe box, again, I've got a 10 here, and the width is good. There's good volume in this. You can see if you loosen this up, if this is part of the Tune Fit lacing system, you could make this quite roomy. You can see my foot shifting from here to here. So this is a very spacious shoe that should work well for most runners. I would just say be careful on sizing due to length. So with my 10, my toe's right here, so this is definitely right sizing for me. Certainly for trail running. If you're primarily a road runner, you could definitely get away with true to size. Like if I was road running, I could say get away with a touch less thumbs width, you know, without the variation, the steep ups and downs that you have when you're trail running. But I would say this is right size for me in the 10. So again, that 9.5 was just a little closer down, and I was getting it right here. And that's the same spot I kind of feel in the T1 when I'm descending. When I'm running flats, moderates, rolling, I don't notice it at all in the T1. It's just at times when I am, you know, again, it doesn't hold the foot as well. There's a little bit of sliding, which I see similarly in here. The foot moves forward a little bit. Now, that could vary with your foot volume. If you have a higher volume foot, you might not slide forward as much. I just feel like they're not as totally dialed here to really prevent that touch of sliding, but I don't think this shoe is any worse off than the T1. It holds just as well as the T1, and that is a dedicated trail shoe. So again, I think I could probably also go a 10 in the T1. That's probably my sizing in Mount to Coast. When I get back to the truck, I'll look at the R1 and I'll kind of explain my thing with sizing in Mount to Coast. So just starting up right after that close-up, I actually tightened my right lower tuned fit lacing section a little bit tighter, and I do notice better foothold. So that's again something you could vary with this shoe if you're going out on more moderate or real trail running. You can dial that lower section down a little bit tighter and enhance, you know, the trail running foothold. If you're going on easy trails or even on the road, you can just leave that bottom section quite loose and go for more of a comfort fit. Oh boy, Mount to Coast has done it again here. This is an excellent model. Clearly in the running for trail shoe of the year for that matter. I mean, can this shoe do it all? I mean, this might be one of my favorite road running shoes. Clearly and obviously a pick for recovery, easy trails, light trails. One of the best shoes out there. And if I'm thinking what you get from the T1, aside from the traction difference, you're not that far off with this shoe compared to the T1, which is a legitimate pure trail running shoe. And at a price point of $160, this is clearly one of the best values of any running shoe on the market today, in my opinion. There are certain shoes, I often get asked, what's the best all-around shoe? What do you daily train in? If there's one shoe, what would you pick? This is in the conversation. You have to think about the terrain that you're running in, how much road running you're doing. Hey, even treadmill. I tested this shoe on the treadmill too. And you know, the R1 midsole lasts forever. I see no reason why this Versa Grip outsole here wouldn't be just as durable for something like treadmill running. So you really do have a shoe here that handles everything and excels even at most of those things. I mean, very little that this shoe cannot do. It is going to be a hit for Mount to Coast, and I highly recommend it. So thank you once again for tuning into Humble Running. Hope you enjoyed this look at the H1. Welcome to any new viewers who I may have picked up after Mammoth Trail Fest. Had a great time over there. Met a lot of great runners out there, and just overall wonderful event. Can't wait to go back there. I of course will be throwing this shoe in the mix for ABCD comparison testing in the future. Roundups, best of in the fall and for 2025. So stay tuned for that. As always, any comments down below, I will do my best to answer and be as detailed and thorough as possible. Go to mounttocoast.com, put in Humble Running when you check out. You get 10% off this shoe. That's $16 off of an already great value of $160. Also 10% off of every order at thefeed.com. That helps support Humble Running. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this. Links to related videos in the description. Don't tune out just yet. Mount to Coast truck bed comparison coming right up right now. All right, H1 right here. Let's start from the beginning actually. I've got my R1s. Mount to Coast started being sold in my local running shop, so I went to check these out and I just love them straight away, and I picked up a pair for myself. You see, they have this insert this is not just the outsole, but inside the shoe, inside the midsole, they have an insert here that's like a firmer, more of a, I guess, plasticky type of rubber insert there. And this midsole does feel like more like a regular EVA. I'm not sure, it might be super critical, but it does feel softer underfoot, and I feel like this kind of insert helps stabilize and keep it from really feeling too soft and maybe packing down, squishing too much under the ball of the foot. You also have the Ortholite insole in this model here. This is a US 9.5, and being that it was originally in my local running shop, this is a pretty wide and rounded toe box. You've seen this shoe in many backyard ultras, long distance, multi-day events with Mount the Coast pro runners. I think that's what it's more designed for. Again, very spacious in the forefoot here, and also in the front of the toe box. I was able to try on a 9.5 and a 10 in store, and the 10 was absolutely huge in this shoe. So in the 9.5, I even have quite a bit of space in the front of the toe box here in this R1. A little different with, once I got the T1, I noticed immediately that it definitely had a pointier shaped toe box here. In a 9.5, I noticed snugness at the front here compared to this one. Again, after having this H1 in a US 10, I would say that I probably ideally would also have a 10 in the T1 here. With the R1, I would definitely stick to the US 9.5. The 10 is too big in this model. Coming to these two here, just checking the insole here, see you have this kind of rubberized EVA type of insole here for a trail model. I'd ideally, look at my gaiters here. Oh, worth noting that the loop here is also in the H1, so if you have a gaiter with a little tabby on the back, that is excellent. Love to see that. Great, I could use these across both of these shoes here. Again, differences in the lacing here. You can see you have the quick lace at the top here, and I suspect this is what's getting, and I do also feel this sometimes, certainly in the descents. This is like a knit tongue here. It's very thin. This is more of a traditional padded tongue throughout, from the bottom all the way up here. Again, this tongue material extends to this kind of, I guess, gives it a little flexibility at the forefoot, but it's thin, and this can feel a little bit sharp. If the top of your foot is up here, you can imagine this pressing into here. I really don't have issues with it. I guess it's gonna vary based on your foot shape, but I have heard that from, other runners. You certainly will not have that issue in this shoe. Thicker traditional tongue, flat laces up here as opposed to this quick lace. So overall, a more comfortable upper here. And I'm not sure as far as weight. This also has the Kevlar aramid fibers in here. Similar type of lightweight material. You do have a jacquard mesh upper here. It's very comfortable around the top of the foot. It's kind of like a dual, I think they call it a dual type of upper here between this lighter weight Kevlar-ish matrix type material here and the jacquard up here. Here you have this mesh throughout. The heels are also very similar. The shape of the heels is almost exactly, if not, is almost the same, if not exactly the same. Very comfortable. No hard edges, soft all around, low over here, notably, which is great for comfort and long distance and duration avoidance of any type of irritation coming from the collar. Just great here. So if you have no issues in the T1, you'll have no issues with the collar. Heel hold is also excellent. Semi-deep heel cup. Again, this ring of cushioning is pretty well solid over the top and around the top of the heel, and the edges below the ankle and around the lower portion of the foot. So your foot is really seated in there very well. I don't notice any heel slippage at all in either of these models here. I think the toe boxes, they're just definitely, compared to, say, the road model, it's definitely pointier in both of these. I would say this is the most pointy. Maybe that's by design, being that it's their trail model, and of course being a hybrid, maybe they just went, somewhere in the middle in terms of toe box shape. Again, this is the only one I have in a 10, and I love it. It feels great. I have the 9.5, and I just feel like, similar to this shoe, my big toe gets me here sometimes, and in my 9.5 in this one, it also gets me kind of around here. Don't feel it at all in the 10. So if that's something that you felt as well, I would suggest going up a half size. I'd probably even suggest going up a half size, depending on where you fall within a sizing range. If you're, if you have a range of a half size depending on the distance and duration you're running. I would go to the higher end in this model because that's really what the shoe is for. And again, you could really, if you want your ankle, top of the foot tighter, you could dial it in here and keep this lower. Or you want to go trail running and you want more secure fit in the lower section of the shoe over the forefoot. For those types of scenarios, you could crank that down here on those types of days. So you could really vary your foothold in this shoe across, I guess, hybrid types of running, road, trail, and anything with this shoe. Again, looking at the outsole, it's pretty smooth for road running. You can see these are 2 mil lugs. I did measure them. Solid coverage. There you could see the 4 mil lugs here. Similar type of shape here. You're going to get more grip and traction, of course, with the Vibram Mega Grip here. But you saw me running there. I did not have any issues with this outsole. And I did bring another shoe for comparison. I just had this shoe. My last video was considering using this shoe for the Dragon's Back Ascent in Mammoth, and this only has 2 mil lugs. They're no deeper than this one, and I've seen this shoe run in plenty of serious trail races. So, lug depth is somewhat of a personal preference, and I would say definitely a need if you're especially in muddy terrain. But if you're not really in muddy terrain, you could definitely get away with 2 mil lugs for a lot of conditions. Of course, you're going to have better traction in this one here, but yeah, Mount to Coast H1. This is one heck of a road, trail, hybrid shoe. Let's call it what it is. It's excellent.